Hey, and welcome to Digital Dialogues. This is the place where we dive into the minds of entrepreneurs, creators, publishers, and innovative thinkers. Whether you're starting a business, exploring affiliate marketing, or wanting to take it to the next level, join me as we explore the digital insights and tactics shaping the future together. Welcome to Digital Dialogues. In today's episode, we're diving into the world of podcast marketing, exploring how creators and brands can take advantage of strategies like affiliate partnerships, dynamic ads, and branded content to grow audiences and boost revenue. I'm excited to have Bastian Albert, CEO of audiotakes GmbH, joining us today. So I would say let's discover how to make the most of our podcast in 2025. Before we dive into that, as usual, I have my questions prepared. So I would love to get to know you a little bit more. So hi, Bastian. How are you today?
Hello, I'm fine today. Started good in 2025.
That's good. So my first question is, what's a podcast everyone should listen to at least once?
I would say Wild and Foreign. In German, it's Wild and Fremd. It's a podcast who won last year the podcast prize, German podcast prize. They are very young. One is almost over 20 and the other under 20, I think 17 or 18. I don't know. It's very exciting. Everyone should be listening into because they're doing a good job and they have a lot of passion in this podcast. Amazing podcast. Everyone should only 10 minutes.
Okay.
And it's very interesting podcast.
Nice. And what are they talking about?
History, expeditions. It's like go to the North Pole or going to the Ends. And
wow.
It's a very interesting because it's manuscripts from postcards or from a book or a log. That's very interesting, and they go very deep. You can feel the passion of the podcast.
Okay, wow. I will definitely note it down and listen to it. Is there also a podcast which has changed the way you think about business, about your business, or in general?
Yes, of course. It's a Drosten podcast, the Corona podcast. Since a lot of podcasts about learning or SEO or a lot of podcasts about marketing. But then in the Drosten, everyone listened podcasts. That was a change in the mind of a lot of people. My father came to me and now I listen podcasts. He said, wow, that's amazing. Or I go, yeah, you make a podcast. Can you describe what is it? I don't know. I know about now because it's everywhere possible to listen. It's not on YouTube. It's in Spotify. It's in Apple Podcast. It's almost on the website or in the mediathek of ARD. And that was very changed because podcast it's now in our whole life. And from podcast.de, it's over 20 years. Last year we have 20 years, and we have a lot of downs and ups and downs and ups. But this down after this Corona was a new level. A really, really important. And a lot of people are now asking, when we have this podcast from Drosten or from Corona, what podcast we have, and I can listen over 1 hour, and it's very interesting. And so a lot of people discover podcast, and that's changed my mind because the consumption of our whole digital consumption were changing. A lot of people listened radio, they listened podcast, or in YouTube. A lot of people sitting before the computer, and now they have a lot of information because there were a lot of information in 1.5 hours, and you can listen it when you drive with a bus, you can listen when you go running, you can listen. That's amazing. And a lot of people say you're a woman can do both, two or more things, and man can only one. And now I can listen a podcast and doing one more. That's fantastic.
Amazing. All right. Thank you for the insights. The last question would be also if you could have dinner with one podcaster, who would it be? Would it be someone from the two podcasts you mentioned now, or would it be someone completely else?
Tony Robbins or Tim Ferriss, I think, because I read a lot of books from him or from Tony Robbins. I learned a lot of, and now they're doing a podcast, and that's interesting because you don't must go to an audience from him. You can have information from
Yeah.
the people with the voice of the people.
Yeah.
That is amazing, and I would like have a dinner with him. A little bit like you sitting on the table in front of him, because you can listen his voice, all the concentration on the voice, and you can
Yeah.
consume this everywhere where you are. It's changed a lot of my mind, because I coming from like you, from the online advertisement.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be my next question. So, as you already mentioned, you're coming more from the online side, but can you tell us a bit more also about your journey? How did you get started in the world of podcast? What made you get into this field?
Coming from here, Berlin, but not so far. When I was younger, it was in Starken. It's a part of GDR. It's a lot time ago, for the most people, but I'm born there. My father and mother, my parents lived there, and then there come the unification, and my Starken is now Berlin. We not moved, come to here, and I was here in Berlin, lived up here, grow up here, and studied then Master of Economics in Potsdam, where I was born. And after my study, I said, okay, I will doing anything with macroeconomics, but there were no possibilities. You can go to the bank, or I can go to the insurance. But I'm hated to leave Berlin, because Berlin it's one of the fantastic side of the world. And so we founded our first company, Area Mobile, the mobile phone magazine, with 4 friends. We lost 2 in 2 years, but we are then me and Stefan Adolf, the founder, and we grow from 2 people, without money, to 80 people. Magazine,
Wow.
a big magazine, was the biggest mobile phone magazine in Germany, mobile phone, and so was my first contact points with the advertisement, because we're doing advertisement, banner. The format was 468 to anything very small, but a lot of our journalists said, no commercials, we can do it. We can't do a banner in our fantastic magazine. It was the first contact point, and it was fantastic. And after 5 years, I sell this company, and I go 1 year to Australia. And when I come back, founded 3 or 4 or 5 other companies. Discounto, it's one of them, and they doing a lot of advertisement. Other advertisement, the other was a branding and banner, and then we doing 13 years affiliate marketing. A lot affiliate marketing, because it was Discounto was where you can buy things offline and then auch online, and the conversions was very good, and it was very good target groups, because we can show all this was in the flyer or in the discount where we show 10 years long, very affiliate, and a lot of interesting people. And then 6 years ago, I came to Fabio, who I thought doing podcast.de since 21 years, a lot of time. And so we have now the advertisement company Audiotakes. I can explain a little bit later how it came together. And
Yeah.
so I come to a podcast. And podcast in my time from Discounter was very interesting. I learned a lot of things about SEO or SEM or
Yeah.
affiliate. That was a fantastic way. I was always running 4 times a week or 3 times, and I listened podcast.
Yeah, very exciting journey. And also, that you wanted to start from a completely different field and then you ended up here. Yeah, very interesting to know. What did Australia play a role in your career? Because you said you left, and when you came back, you discovered that you want to build this company. Was there a specific inspiration to to build this company?
Yeah, after this 4 or 5 years area mobile, it was very that was very exhausting because we growing from 2 to 80 with the first level execution to 2 level to 3 level, and that was I growing with the friends, and that was very exhausting for me.
Yeah.
And so I would have off and learned about what I make you happy in your life, and in this time I are only doing sports and traveled about to Tokyo, to Australia, and I learned a lot of me. What can I do? What it's
What makes you
really
happy?
important,
Yeah.
and what make you not happy. And when I was come back, first I founded a company for business coaching. You can say Albert and Förster. That's all. Also exist, but I doing business coaching once a year. In this time, I learned Discounto, and this was 2 founder in this company, and I come there, and after a short time, I came in this company to the second CEO. We have a CEO, a CTO, and we're doing this 14 years together. And I'm the owner of this company then a little bit, and it was 14 fantastic years, and I learned a lot of things. But Australia was the energy, a lot of energy for this. I think when you're doing anything, it's very important that you came with passion, like a podcast. You have podcast and you have podcast, and then you have the host, like you have. And like this Wild and Foreign or Wild and Fremd, they have so many passion in it, and you can listen it. You can feel it.
Yeah.
It's like when everyone is full of passion for this, what they're doing, it's always good. And you need energy for this passion.
Yeah.
And only when you have energy, you can make good work or you can good results. And that was very interesting. And the other thing, it's learning about me. It's like also very important that work is one part of the of your life, but yourself very important, that you are fine with yourself, or you have time for your family or for your friends. All this force.
Yeah.
And every part will interact with the other part. When you're at work, I think it's bad. It's in yourself. You're feeling a little bit bad, and that I was learning. And so you must have a lot of space for all this parts. And that I learned after Australia. I only worked 4 days a week, always. Sometimes I must go on Friday, but I prefer it. And when I make a coaching for people, I always say try to work only 4 days.
Yeah.
And a lot of friends, no, it's not possible. And after 10 years of my voice, the most work only 4 days.
Yeah. Some people need a bit more time to realize that. But I think it's a good system because you still have the same amount of energy and like you still can learn so much and still be so productive during the working hours. So I feel like 4-day week is still, or like is the future. Yeah, that's what
It's very productive. Or when you have a problem and you worked every day, and you need solving, and when one day you have one day off, and you say, okay, go and have a walk or go running, and then thinking about the problem, the most solve came for
Yeah, from
came to you.
itself. Yeah.
Because you are only have another point of view and
Yeah.
you're not so exhausted. What you can feel when you are working 5 days, you are very exhausted at Sunday evening. When you are working only Thursday, you are very exhausted at Saturday. The Sunday, mostly it's very, very good to refill your energy.
Yeah.
And on Monday, there's a wall you must break through. And so, oh no, can't go to work because you are now in this point of 1.5 day where very you are recreational or
Yeah.
you can refill very good your power. And that's I think it's a very, very good thing to do.
Solution. Yeah, to do. Yeah. All right. I agree definitely. So now we learned some insights about you and also about the podcast Imperium as its own thing. I would love to dive a bit into advertising now because so many people, they will launch a podcast and then they will look for ways to reach a larger audience and also of course to earn money from their podcast. And so one important tool is of course advertising. Can you name different forms of advertising in the podcast universe?
Yeah, first, I think I will say about our podcast universe. Maybe I told before, Fabio, it's founding 21 year now ago. Podcast.de, it's one of the biggest platform or the biggest platform when I not speak about Spotify, about podcasts. So we're learning a lot of insights about this podcast because all podcasts where you can listen there or you can found podcast.de. And before 50 years before, we founded a hosting podcaster. And now one or two other hosting platforms came to there, and we hosting over 10,000 podcasts there. And then there came the ask from podcaster, like you told, how we can earn money with a podcast. And so we founded 6 years ago the podcast advertising company Audiotakes. And in this Audiotakes, we have thousands of podcasts who, new in our advertisement network, and they can earn money with this. I will shortly say, when you have a podcast, you have so a lot of possibilities to earn money. One of the simplest one is this: you have a sponsor. The podcast will produce, and the sponsor said, "Oh, that's very interesting. I like you, or you are the target group, and I will give you money to do this podcast." This is one. The other, it's like when you have native advertisement. So we have a host read. The people, like in YouTube, read about a product or a service. They say that's my prefer service for this, or I do this service, and that's one other thing you can earn money with a podcast. We have a lot of possibility to earn money for the paid podcast. For example,
Good to hear.
it's possible to make shirts. It's always a community behind this. That's a sponsor is always a brand or anything, but you have this sponsor, so micro sponsoring, where a lot of people spend money. That podcast, I listen every Friday this podcast, and the podcast said, I have problems because I have not so much time. So a lot of people spend, and then they have time to produce the podcast. The quality was better, the information was better, and so it's one other. And on the advertisement, you can have advertisement podcast. So host read, that's the native is, for example, a possibility, but you can also have a spot in this, like a radio spot. So we have in this the possibility to have a spot before the podcast, in the podcast, and behind the podcast. We call it post post-roll, pre-roll, and mid-roll. We came from the podcaster, so we try to help the podcaster. So we say it's not good when you have so many advertisements in a podcast. We have a lot of studies, I think as master thesis, who have the title what happened when it's too much advertising in a podcast with the podcast and the consumption.
Yeah.
And there will this result of this work, there is a little bit, but not much, because when you are doing is not so much, and you have this problem, you have my 4 or 5 spots behind, and it's 5 minutes or 3 minutes, too long.
Yeah.
Mostly, and a lot of people go then away, or in the TV is the same. It's too much, and in podcasts, it's one of the advantages is we have this context in the podcast. When you have this integration, the podcast go to the ad server and will be transcribed in keywords, and the keywords show you a lot of things in the targets. And when you, for example, Hannah, listen a lot of online marketing podcasts, I go a little bit more deeper, a lot of newsletter podcasts, for example. We know that you are interested in newsletter, or maybe you're working in this business because nobody listens so much newsletter online marketing podcasts. And so we have a lot of nice targets, competitor to radio, and a lot of awareness in this podcast. And this awareness, this where the advertiser will have this target group. And when you have a nice target group, and we can target from the ad server zip code, for example, we can target age or gender, but we can also over 5,000 target criteria, like business owner, like decision maker, like homeowner, like family. When you listen a podcast about babies, or you mostly have a baby, or you have a lot of doing with a baby, maybe, and then you are very open-minded for this advertisement, because it's one of the smartest things to earn money with a podcast.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you for the great insight. How do you think that podcasters choose the right affiliate partners to make the most of this opportunity? And also, as you said, that it's very going into the niche. And for example, the example with the baby, like how is the process behind this, and how is the connection with affiliate marketing there?
Yes, the most advertiser came with the target groups. What very good is, because the most of the people should know her target group. When they not know, so we can help that they know. But it's when they mostly have their target groups, and or they have the target groups, and target groups are not target groups. You can have the target group, for example, that is enabled in a season of the year. For example, it's now it's a e-bill. It's very interesting for a lot of people, and now it's time to advertise for the e-bill, for example, because it's now in the mind and must solve it. Or when you have the football season starting in August, so in July, August, it's very open-minded for American football things. And so you have the target group, and you have the information, and you have the information when it's very interesting, because the podcast have then a lot of impulse, because we need only a spot, and the spot can produce the advertisement. Maybe they have a spot, or we can produce for a little bit money. It's not so expensive, but the preparation, it's only a discussion. What is our message? And then we need only words for 30 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds. It's not so much. And so when you are very good, you have a campaign in 10 minutes with the target group, and the campaign, it's very easy. It's very simple. I learned in my time from Discounto, I do a lot of affiliate. The really important thing for affiliate, it's already targeting. The better the targeting, the better the conversions. And then now we come to the podcast. The podcast, it's normally a brand or awareness, because in the mind you must have the awareness of the brand. There was a study. There was a lot of people saying, "Yeah, we only spend money in a performance, and the performance go up and up and up because the brand is not so high." And yes, in this counter we learned a lot of huge brands, so Otto or Amazon, they have always the biggest conversion rates because they're in the mind, the brand. So on podcast can help to have this awareness in the brand, but in a very deep niche or target group. And that's really important for the conversion, because when you have a huge conversion and you have this target group, and so you have affiliate marketing. Now, the affiliate marketing, it's in America it's very high. They make a lot of percent of the advertisement. Okay, in Germany it's like a niche. That's a problem in Germany. People say, okay, affiliate marketing, I don't know.
Yeah.
But affiliate marketing is very good because you can learn about your target groups.
Yeah.
You take it like we called it Gießkanne. I don't know. It's like in English, it's called.
I don't know the word too.
When you're doing water on the flowers, you will only have the lilies, and you go about the garden, and all is now wet, but you will have only the lilies. It's a lot of target group losses. And so you can learn it in an affiliate way to have performance, and you have a great a price,
community as well, probably.
And in podcast you have this target group. You can doing this target group, and so you can have a better results in the marketing, newsletter marketing or in affiliate marketing, because the conversion rate will go higher. And then it's one more good thing, because the publisher or the people who advertise for affiliate, when they have better conversion rates, they will prefer your banner like other banners, because they have not so much places, and for it's very important what earn our money in my places. And so it's very good for performance marketing. It's like the J effect. I'm a macroeconomist, so I like graphs. And the graphs, when you are you're branded, it's more in the mind. Don't must spend so much performance in the shops. It's like in the old way, the flyer. The old way, the flyer came from Aldi or Lidl, and you see it. There is a new product for muesli. It's a very cereal, a new cereal, and I know it, and I go to the supermarket, and I say, oh, there is, and then they have a better performance and a better conversion rate from the people.
If like people listening to this and they started just a podcast, or they want to start a podcast in 2025, this is their vision or their goal, do you have top tips as well for podcasters who are looking to run successfully podcast campaigns, or how could they start?
The best tip is to, when you're doing a podcast or a podcast campaign, we have this what time I must spend to go in the podcast business. How will I structure this? How will I have, and what passion I have for this? The mostly I worked for this, or when you have, and the smallest, and then the other, it's when you have an interview guest. You was an interview guest like me. That's less time, but it's always time. You must go there, and the other, it's you go, you make a sponsoring, or you make a host tweet, and less time it's to have only this commercial, this campaign with a spot. But for this, it's always, for all this podcast to produce or the spot, which target group I have. That's really important. What have I about? And the target group is the mostly important things you must doing. And it's not only the target group to have. Maybe it can be then when you have this target group and you this target group, you have only a march from 4% or 5% or 10%, and the other target group you have 20%. The conversion it's lower, but they invest on the long term. It's better you have other. So you can be to say, okay, I will have not my target group, I will have another target group, and I must try, if it's possible, to enable this target group. And that's what you're doing the first. We are doing in a year, I think, a lot of seminars about it. We can show a lot of people how we can target group, or how we can integrate the podcast in the company. Very interesting. A lot of people doing intern podcasts, and the podcasts, it's a communication possibility for the owner, for example, to reach the message to 1,000 people. And so a lot of nice intern podcasts, but always there is a target group. What is my goal and what is the target group? And that is, I think, the most important for the success of the podcast. A lot of things it's to test, because it can be you start with this target group and your target group is one other, because you are a very happy man, you make a lot of jokes, and your target group is too serious for your jokes. And so you must move in another target group, or you will learn about your target group.
So then maybe a tip could be open for changes. So for example, if you think you really want to reach this one audience, but it doesn't work, to be flexible also to change it, to be clear about who you want to reach. And if it doesn't work out, to also keep an eye on other target groups, right?
Yes, yeah. We spoke about your podcast, the same. It's a name. Your name must be good on your podcast audience, but also as must unique, and it's very unique. You can see in the net, because it's very important to test. We for example, we have a podcast, 3.5 hour podcast, very long, and now they will have a lot of more listener. But when you're a new listener, and I see, wow, 3 hours and a half long podcast, I say, wow, that's maybe to try. Maybe I try later, long time later. It's
next year.
But there's a lot of nice information in it, because they have a really good fan base, and they are very deep. But maybe for other target groups, you must try a shorter version, once a month, or what else. And that you must open for this. The podcast is, I think, 27, 28 minutes. Why? Because 28 minutes is the average journey to work in Germany. So a little bit it's related. And so but you can't say it's only, we have very, very successful podcasts. They are 2 hours and more long. Because they a lot of people like in this community this deep and this analyze your listener. That's very important.
Okay. Is there anything podcasts should watch out for, or how is your own feeling when you look into this year? Do you think podcasts will grow so much this year, or there will not be such a big grow, like a steady grow? Or what about trends, or how is also AI involved in this? Like, what are your thoughts? Or when you look into this year, what do you think will we face?
I think the growing come to podcast, because America, it's a consumption, it's higher like ours, and we have a lot of more podcasts, they come. And the other thing, it's the awareness go up in the radio, because consumption of radio or magazines, or like live events for B2B, it's going more up. And so it's more possibilities to listen podcasts, and the awareness in podcasts will be also growing up. And so we see it in the agency business, or in the companies, the brands. They are very interesting podcasts. We see it in America. It's a very, very high percentage of the advertising spending. The other, it's the target groups, where better and better the target groups, because the more podcasts you listen, the more you can have the target groups, and you see this in the campaigns. The campaigns were more and detailed, and so we can reach the target groups of the brands more better. And that is one of the other future. It's becoming a video and podcast. But my opinion and the opinion of ours, we are audio podcasts. The advantage of podcast is not to looking at the display. And so it's better you have only the audio and listen this podcast. And so I think that's trend is a trend, but we don't think it's so good. It's trend because one of our main advantage is you can listen everywhere, and the entry barriers are very small. We have only this good video and a lot of nice programs, and you can do it here. I'm in a podcast studio. You are at home, right?
Yeah.
You can do it everywhere. That's a very low entry. And when you have now a video, and you will have a good video and a YouTube video, then you need a video setting. We have here a video setting, but it's not this low entry, and all this more data, more time to cut. I don't know. I think it's not. We think it's not a good trend because we are not YouTuber. We are podcaster.
Yeah. Okay, that was a good closing. Thank you so much that you visit my podcast, so that you were part of it, and that you put all your insights and your experience into this episode. For me, it was very useful, and I hope also people who are listening to this can use some really nice insights for their own podcast, or maybe someone who didn't even thought about it is now motivated to start and just buy a microphone and start at home. And I don't know, just take a look on your target group, who you want to reach, what do you want to bring out in the world, like what do you want to talk about, and start, and always be flexible.
Thank you. That was part of your podcast, and I can also, we have a lot of opportunities to have a seminar or to come to our podcast Stammtisch every month. We have a podcast Stammtisch here in Berlin, like other cities. Sometimes we have this podcast camp every year, so we can learn a lot of podcasts. We're doing a lot of communities, and so can only invite podcast.de or podcaster is a lot of information about it. And then we hope we have a very good 2025 for all. A lot of peace and health,
peace is good,
and a
peace
lot
and
of
health.
lucky moments.
Thank you so much. And same to you. Have a very successful and happy 2025.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.